So when we walk in here, folks, to do this podcast, one of the things that I'm really grateful for these 7 is I sat back and said, and PJ prayed it before we got on. We get to do this together. This is a masterpiece. Like, you might not think it is, and you need to be educated. No, you might not think it is, but for a father and a son to be able to talk about things that are not
banal.
Yeah,
just boring.
That means waste, folks. Basically, it's like, it does. It means boring or not, but
tedious.
Yeah, but this is exciting that we get to figure out who God is and what He's doing in our life, and every day we ought to find those good things. Like, you get up every day and you know your wife's going to be faithful. She's going to work hard. That's huge.
Hello and welcome to Wehry Dads. I'm your host, Pete Wehry, with my co-host.
This is Dad. I am the co-host, and today's episode is brought to you by this white cup that
How about Two Brothers Coffee? I would
that's
love
where I'm
to have
gonna
them
go.
as sponsorship.
This is this white cup which held PJ's fine coffee, which you said is what?
Two Brothers Coffee.
See, I knew you'd join this.
Oh, man, that makes me happy. Yeah.
So if two brothers will get behind the Wehry podcast, Wehry Dads.
Yeah.
Two brothers, you would make two sons of God happy, aka my son and I. So excited.
I made a mistake. I did not get more coffee between breaks. So
what were we gonna do?
Foolishness.
Okay, if we went like this, they would never know what it was, but it is two brothers.
And it's not that. I'm talking about I want more coffee.
You don't need more. You're pretty wired. This is right here, folks. Right there. Look at that little at the end. That's a remnant. That's
it's French press. That's not like they have like grit in their coffee. I know.
And we're talking about John Wooden, who, folks, if you don't know this, he had 7 axioms. And when PJ says the French press, right away, when I think of John Wooden, I think of the 221 press, because that's what John Wooden ran as well as anybody. Great coach of pressing with the 221.
So these are the 7 proverbs that his dad wrote on a piece of paper and gave to him when he first went out into the world. We talked about be true to yourself, help others. Honestly, I love this because they are very flexible and allow us to think deeply on things. And I'd encourage people that if you develop these little phrases that accentuate your gifting, it's really healthy because you can use them in different ways. Something as simple as be true to yourself. There's different ways to use that. So today's are make each day
make each day a masterpiece. And by the way, folks, of the 7, this may be one of my favorites. But go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, and there's different ways to think about this, but all the different ways I think about it are really healthy and good for me. So there's make each day your masterpiece, and then drink deeply from good books, especially the Bible.
Okay, so for me, I love the 3rd one, and I've appreciated the 4th one, and I've done that. PJ, I think how do you like make each day a masterpiece? Do you like that?
I do. I think there's something
challenging
to me.
But do you like drink deeply from good books? Man, if there was ever a person that drank, we're not talking a cup of water here. We're not talking a hose. We're talking a fire hose. Actually, probably the hydrant. And PJ is known to have delved deeply into the fire hydrant of good books.
Well, you say that. I would say probably the biggest critique is not so much of me in regards to this is I'd say it's not always good books. I've read some really crappy books too.
Which you can't realize something's a good book until you've read a crappy one.
The ones I read, I was like, well, I won't gain anything from this, but it'll be fun.
So make each day a masterpiece. What is that saying? What's that saying? I think this is especially for people who say, you know what? I've had people say this. I just want to get better at what I do. I want to grow.
Sure.
And I'm going to actually do a workout with some big men at a high school. A coach that I coached this young man when he was at Vanguard reached out to me and said, will you work with our big men? Which, folks, if you know this, I played point guard. If you can even see me on this, but I did. I went to a big man clinic and heard Rick Majerus speak, and I got so much better at teaching big men. I actually enjoy it more. I love teaching post moves. But as I get ready to do this, and we talk about make each day a masterpiece, this is one of the things I'm going to say to those guys. Consistently is way better than occasionally.
Yeah.
Consistently is way better than occasionally. So I think if you are wise, you will take and make every day worthwhile, and you're consistent at doing the things that you need to do so that you live a balanced life, aka your spiritual, your emotional, your physical, and really it's got to be done consistently. If you only do it occasionally, all right. So I have, you know this. I walk 45 minutes a day. It's probably been a game saver for me.
Yeah.
I'm 60. I'm not a limber guy. Never have been. And now I'm doing that, and it's helped me. Then, and you, in our last episode, we're talking about sleeping. I just saw an ad for Peloton, and it basically said, listen, guy's doing the workout. He goes, I'll sleep better tonight. It's so real.
Yeah. Oh, that's so real. Yeah.
But as we talk about make each day your masterpiece, this is imperative that you see the importance of the opportunity you have every day.
Yeah.
And to grasp it and to be consistent with it.
Yes.
And, even some of the things I have the privilege to help people walk through in life, I think it's because I was consistently educating myself by reading every day, which will go to the next one.
Yeah.
But what did you think when you thought of make each day a masterpiece?
Well, there's that obvious thing that John Wooden took away from it, which was excellence.
Yeah, I think that's...
John Wooden was good at what he did.
Right. And you know what, folks? He wasn't a rah-rah guy in any way. He was just the opposite.
Really?
He was very thorough, very... Actually, I just read that. I think it's in Batterson's book about habits. Mark Batterson's book, he was talking about how John Wooden, and it's true, sat there quietly, but he was consistent in his teaching and in his accountability. So even as I say that to you, PJ, I think of your two boys, and the truth is, like, man, the importance of staying consistent with them, which is a challenge every day.
Yeah.
Right?
And then not expecting resolution. This isn't quite where I thought this would go, and I'm okay with that. But one thing, the things I think we struggle with is expecting resolution if we really focus on something. And you know what? Like, especially like when you're parenting, like I'm a guy who likes to finish something all the way to the end. And if I don't I'd rather just not do it.
Right.
And let me tell you, when you're parenting, you can't do that.
Well,
you have to
you can. It's going to be about 60 years of it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's not going to happen in that conversation, right? You're like, if when you're dealing with a 4-year-old.
I don't think we needed to go all to there. And I know I led that conversation, but don't just, you know what your sons need you to do? Be consistent, make each day a masterpiece. And every day is a privilege. Every day is a joy. Yeah. What were you thinking when you read this? What did it stir you?
That's what I had was excellence, but I also had delight and wonder. Make each you can find something, and what's really good is I think it's Burkhard's planner has what's one thing that gets you excited today. It's one of the questions in the morning, probably one of the best questions or my favorite questions in there. I was like, I don't do that. I don't think about something to look forward to in the day. I'm just like, I just think about, this is what I have to get done. And sometimes I'm just like, where's the joy in my life? And I'm like, that's because I'm not thinking about what's exciting. Well, like there's always something exciting.
That's so good.
To do.
I wrote 3 thank yous to some people.
Yeah.
Right. And as I'm writing the thank yous, I'm excited that God brought them into my life. But I will tell you, if I don't think that way, it becomes wow. Almost lost my glasses. And it becomes just rote and no depth to it.
But that's a masterpiece.
Well, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
What are you doing today that is a masterpiece?
Man.
Folks, I think this is going to be really good.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What have you done today? It's a masterpiece.
Well, I would say for sure. And this has been a really big step for me. That I had all these dietary issues, and then I found out that I learned to love to cook. I look forward to cooking every day, and I make something just really.
Okay, you don't just cook though. You really you're striving to get better at it. It's becoming a masterpiece. So when we walk in here, folks, to do this podcast, one of the things that I'm really grateful for these 7 is I sat back and said, and PJ prayed it before we got on. We get to do this together. This is a masterpiece. Like, you might not think it is, and you need to be educated. No, you might not think it is, but for a father and a son to be able to talk about things that are not
banal.
Yeah,
just boring.
That means waste, folks. Basically, it's like, it does. It means boring or not. But
tedious.
Yeah, but this is exciting that we get to figure out who God is and what He's doing in our life, and every day we ought to find those good things. Like you get up every day and your wife's going to be faithful. She's going to work hard. That's huge.
That's something to take delight and wonder in every day.
That's a masterpiece. So today, folks, you don't know this. My mom is really struggling with dementia. My wife gets up every day. We're walking together. Sorry, folks. I want you all to hear that. That's a masterpiece. We're making this special. We're trying to connect in our marriage. Folks, hear these. Some things that we think are, just as PJ said, vain, not worthy, just boring, just rote. No, see them as they are. To spend time with my wife is a masterpiece. And then that I know she's going to go down from 8 to 4 because it's her gifting and her love. She's going to help my mom and dad. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, and not having to make it perfect, but just being exciting about doing it well. And I think that's the masterpiece side, because you can have things that aren't, you can have days that aren't masterpieces because you just check out and you don't want to be part of it.
I wonder if, I don't know enough about art, but I wonder if there's a very signature of people's artwork because it isn't perfect. There's a style. You hear that all the time, right?
Yeah.
There is, you might do it different.
Yeah. Well, and I think like if you start focusing on perfection in your art, you can run into problems instead of focusing on what you're trying to create. It's a slightly different thing. But every artist is different, so I don't need.
Right, we don't need probably.
Sorry,
so I just went there and
excited about that.
But even saying that, guys that are really good at what I'm around basketball, they'll talk. They don't say they're working on their game. They'll say really good players will say, "I'm working on my craft."
Well, and that's so here's a good example.
Yeah.
What would a perfect basketball game look like? So, like a great example of this is I watched some highlights of Steph Curry hitting like 50 points in the All-Star game, and he hit those 5 threes in a row, and I was just like, to me that was a masterpiece game. That was unbelievable. Like clearly the work of a master craftsman. And then
really good work.
But he missed some shots. So it wasn't perfect, but he was like, by focusing every day, and I think that's the other piece I had. Be where you are and focus on what you're doing that day and take delight and wonder in it. And I think that's the message of this, make each day your masterpiece.
Well, what do you do with it? And this is huge. There's light out there, but what if you really take it and you focus it? It is burning and it makes a difference, right? You got to get that magnification. Well, there's so many people that we walk through life and we don't magnify the day and say, this is an opportunity. I'm going to take it and grow myself, grow those around me, impact those around me. Going back to, I'm going to help others. Okay. I'm going to look not at myself. I'm going to be true to myself.
Yes.
And I'm going to love the others, and that it's coming from the work of grace done in your life. I'm going to make today a masterpiece. I think this is one of my favorite things I've ever heard. Like, I want to make each day a masterpiece.
And it's something you said there is really good too, because it's not about a lot of big things. It's about a lot of little things, and focusing each day on a lot of little things and just doing every little thing well. I was just, I've read a couple things recently about people being jealous of people who are successful. And there is some varying degrees of chance involved with that. I would say providence. But when you really look at it, it's amazing how what people, they look at when someone's like, oh man, they got a lucky break. And it's like, what they didn't see is that the opportunity came, and they didn't realize that sometimes the opportunity is passed by them because there were so many little things they didn't do right that people just were like, well, I'm not giving it to them. Right?
So I can't believe you're saying that, because there's a fella, and I don't mind it. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but his name is Griff Aldrich, head coach at Longwood University. They're going to the NCAA tournament. They just won the Big South. Mm-hmm. Griff was a CEO and a lawyer for a big company, and he coached AAU, got the director of basketball operation job at UMBC, Maryland, Baltimore County, was the DOB, and became the head coach at Longwood. Well, he had gone to college at Hampton, Sydney, which is right near there. He was part of, and I'm going to say this, folks, Farmville, Virginia. Do you know where Farmville is?
No idea.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's and folks, a little town. And he's up front with the player. But here's what he does. He is a process guy, and he's really good at following through with all the details.
Yes.
4 years ago, they didn't win a league game. They lost 15 in a row before he got there. And now they won the Big South, and it's not even close. I mean, they were really good.
Yeah.
But it was the process. He made every day a masterpiece. And guess what happened, folks? He created a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Now, he'd be embarrassed when he said, he'd shake his head. He'd say, God's been good. And he has. But when God gives you a burden and you're supposed to do it, take every advantage of every day of being faithful and consistent and make each day a masterpiece.
I've been really impacted by a guest I've now had on twice on Chasing Leviathan. His name's Dr. Lewis Gordon. And he talked about he was 12 years old and he was living in poverty in the Bronx. And his teacher, his social history teacher, or social studies teacher said, I want you guys to read the Times every day. And he's like, I can't. My family can't afford it. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And he's like, no, really, I can't. He's like, okay, I ride a train in from outside the city. If you show up to school at 5:30, you can have my copy. I read it on the train. And at 12 years old, he showed up every day to read the New York Times, which to me like blows my mind. But the other thing, the part of that, then that teacher ended up mentoring him a lot, ended up introducing him to all sorts of things. And that was a huge part of him growing.
I listened to some of the podcasts, folks. In fact, most of it. This is an educated man. And the reason he's educated is he every day consistently made it a masterpiece and he educated himself. And that goes to our second one.
Yes. Well, let me say this.
Finish.
Yes, because what you're looking at, you're like, well, he read the New York Times every day. It's not about the New York Times. It's about he showed the guy that he cared and that he was disciplined enough that he was like, I will learn in the little things. And then the guy next thing was giving him the bigger books. Right. And so it starts with little things, which leads us into,
I really appreciate you finishing that up because as you say, it is doing the little things, making each day a masterpiece is all of a sudden a year later, you do have something bigger than you even expected.
Yes.
And if you listen to this man, I'm telling you, he's one of the most educated people I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And very, very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So that leads to the second one, which I believe, and I'll be honest, I do some encouragement to people that are leaders, and they say, I don't like to read books. And I get that.
There's other ways.
But I don't get that. I'm just going to be honest with that. Something I really think people, you know what? It's a good discipline.
Yeah.
Right? But
well, I'd say different styles of learning.
Right.
There's some... everybody has to have
auditory,
a way.
Some are much better with auditory.
You can listen. You can listen to the book.
Well, that's why I went to him. I said, listen,
gotcha.
man, you got to listen to these then.
Yes.
So auditory and podcast, but this is the second one for this episode. It's the fourth overall. Drink deeply from good books, especially
the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've made the mistake sometimes with my devotions of just reading theology or a devotional, and it's just there's no replacement for actually reading the Bible. And you can get really great thoughts from other people, but then to see everything, there's nothing like the context of reading a good chunk of the Bible, where you're like, you forget how everything connects.
So I'm going to say this, folks. I read the Bible every year, and that sounds extremely spiritual. Sometimes it's hard for me not to flow through certain portions. Even right now I'm in Numbers. I just got done with Leviticus and I'm writing down in my journal lots of sacrifice. Okay. But I'm in Numbers now. But what the Bible reading plan I have is Old Testament. Sometimes they'll throw a Psalm in there. I think it's by Matt Chandler, but I'm not sure. Then I read the proverb every day.
Yeah.
And then I read the New Testament. Now that's 5 days a week. And on the weekends, I read those proverbs, which helps me. And then I journal those things. But as I say this to you, what you said was so real. You have to read the scriptures because the scriptures speak and you will learn new things from, and you got to get it in context.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If
I hear one more person say to someone who just lost like a loved one, all things work together for good. And it's like, there's a lot of context to that statement.
Yeah, there is. And so
go ahead.
So you're right. Like but reading, there's nothing replacing that. And that's what I thought was interesting. He's telling his son, educate yourself.
Yeah.
But don't forget the most important education.
Yeah.
Especially is your spiritual education.
Yeah. Can I add one thing with the Bible reading? I've heard this and it's been useful. If you are reading a lot and you feel like it's rote, something that's helped me, and I know I more heard it from other people, is just switching up your version of the Bible. Make sure it's still like a solid one, but changing the version can be really helpful just to help it strike fresh.
Well, two things there too. I think the version's good, and the second thing is do different things. For example, I'm doing this, but there was a time where I read the Bible in 3 months. Now, folks, now I did not remember details, but you know what? I got the big view, and that was really interesting for me to do. And then I think there's ways to just do, like 1 year I just read the New Testament 4 times. Okay, and I thought that was healthy for me at that moment.
Yeah.
And I've actually gone through books during my devotions and gone through like 3 to 4 verses, and I used different tools to make sure I was getting the right words and so forth and what they meant in regards to context. But the whole lesson is drink deeply from good books, especially Bible.
Let me latch on to when you said, do something different. And I've said it on here before, but if people may have missed it before, or I don't know, I find this helpful to remember. Haruki Murakami, I'm going to butcher the quote, but the general idea is, if you read what everyone else is reading, you'll think exactly like everyone else. So don't be afraid to
you've
read
said this
weird...
in other podcasts.
Yes.
And it's made me think.
It's really good to read. I threw out a Marxist philosopher last episode, and I don't agree with everything he says, but he has such a different viewpoint that when he does say something I agree with, I just had never seen it before, and it was convicting, and it caused me to change in good ways. And that's not a plug to for everyone to be a Marxist philosopher, but it's not bad to don't just take other people's words for what other people say. Go read what they say. And the worst thing, what's the worst thing that happens? You could find out the truth, or you could find out, no, really, these people
have issues.
Yeah. And so
there's truth to that.
Yeah. And so don't be afraid to read something different.
Right.
And there, you've been really good for me in this way. I'm not a big business management, business wisdom kind of guy, but I've been challenged by you to read some of those, and it's been really helpful. High Performance Habits by Brendan Burkhardt was really good at that time. You're like, I think this would be good for you. And so I listened to you. I'd never read anything like that before, and it was huge. It was really helpful. And then in our office, we've been doing this, and so thank you for the feedback. Grit. Oh man, we've been doing books that not my normal fare, but really, really challenging.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've even said about to you that I commended him in his meetings. They have meetings every Thursday, and they read a book they're doing, as he said, Grit. They did Thank You for the Feedback. What was the other one? Oh, 13 Things Mentally Tough People Do.
Don't do. Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing, folks. When I led an athletic department, we met on Mondays and we read a book that was on biblical counseling or biblical challenge, and a lot by
Ted Tripp.
Yeah.
Paul Tripp.
Ted, the Shepherding a Child's Heart, but Paul Tripp.
I get confused,
War of Words. And by the way, I read one of his every day, New Morning Mercies. But long story short is it really helped our office grow together because it led to transparent conversations and so forth. Same thing with your office.
Yes.
As you're looking, because here's what we do in companies. Here's what we do in life. We have a tendency to compare ourselves, or we have a tendency to pigeonhole ourselves. This is how I think my team views me. But when you're honest, they go, no, we don't view you that way. Or there's a tendency to view you that way. You could do this to improve that. Oh, well, I can get better.
Yeah. Well, and that's the interesting corollary, right? If you only read what everyone else reads, then you only think what everyone else thinks. That's obviously prompting you read different books. But the truth is, in our office, by reading together, we're on the same page, literally, right? It's actually
on
really
the same
helpful.
Page and having different viewpoints on what it was saying, because it's not that it just impacted me a different way, but there were certain points or parts of that book that impacted people differently, and they were like, "Oh, that challenged me."
Yeah, and that from the similarity side of things, there's been a shared vocabulary.
Yeah,
that's really powerful
in regards to life and office, the whole and
for
family.
Feedback. Oh, that was big.
So let me just say this, okay? If I could say to somebody, man, I want to grow, I would say to you, the number one thing you could do is read, educate yourself. If you say I can't do that, I would say, well, then
find a way to educate yourself.
Audio books, and then podcasts. I'm telling you, if you want to stay the same, don't do anything. But if
Well, I mean,
you want
that's-
to grow,
That's actually, I would disagree. If
if you say the same, you're going to down.
You're going to decline. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I say this all the time, and Drew used it when he was leading at Sanford. If you're not growing, you're dying. And there's a real truth there. And so the 4 axioms that we did today, the first 2 were
be true to yourself, help others,
and then today,
make each day your masterpiece, drink deeply from good books, especially the Bible.
what do you take away from especially today's this 2 episode? What's the thing that you'll walk away from here going, man, this makes me think?
I think it's been a very difficult season for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that challenge and just that encouragement, it's not even like I'm learning something new per se, but that repetition of make each day your masterpiece. Because right now it's really difficult where I'm at with the kids and the business. There's just so much going on. And then I just look at it and I'm like, I mean, how long are my kids going to be 6 and 4? I mean, my 6-year-old's going to turn 7 in a couple weeks, right?
You have to see this.
This is my time. This is my time to do what I can only do at this time. And I want to do it well.
Right. And so, you folks, I'm going to jump from being on a podcast to being a dad and just say, listen, man, you don't have to have your business to this point 3 years from now. It's going to take 3 years.
Right.
So just
I want the 3 years now. Yeah,
right. Well, we do. We want to get folks, one of the greatest challenges I ever heard, and this is, drink deeply from good books. I'll never forget hearing the principle of sowing and reaping. And there's this problem about sowing and reaping as we look at it. We think if we sow today, that we should reap within a week. That's not how that goes.
So today, reap tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sow today, and you think about it, sow in the spring, and 3 months later, 4 months later, almost 5, September, October, you reap some benefits. Now, I know the tomatoes might come out a little earlier in the garden and all those things, but certain things take a while. And this is really interesting. Whether it's, you're trying to take care of yourself physically, you're not going to see a difference in 2 weeks. You're not going to see a difference in a month. You will start to see a difference in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You'll definitely see a difference in 3 months. 3 months. Sowing and reaping. Yeah. And the key I go back to is not occasionally, consistently.
Right.
Make each day a masterpiece consistently. And one of the ways to do that is to drink deeply from good books and the
Bible.
Oh, whew.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been really good for me. It's encouraging. Thank you for doing this with me. And I want to give God glory for allowing us this privilege.
Absolutely. And if you took another step in your personal journey today, please like, share, and subscribe so someone else can too.
Hit the button. Hit the button. Just reach over and hit the button. Hey, thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you too, buddy.